So welcome to Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. I'm Scott.
I'm Nell.
And today we're going to talk about our bottom 5 books. These are the worst 5 books we've read.
Ever read!
Dun dun dun! Scary voiceover. Okay, so... so we're a new channel and we'd just like to discuss... We'd like to do a video on the books we like and the video on the books that we don't like so that you can get an idea of whether you want to follow us or not, you know. There's a subscribe button, hit the subscribe button if you hate these books. Or maybe you, after hearing these reviews of books that we hate, go, actually, I think you might be wrong, I think I might like this book because we don't, if we give you a recommendation for one of these books and you end up going, actually that sounds like something I want to read, go read it. Like, we're not always right. This is just our opinions.
I'm always right, but I'm not a big fan of ranking books or even rating them. I don't do the 5 stars on Goodreads. And there are very few books that I am completely negative about. I think most books have something to offer your brain as food. And I think even if that, anyway, but for the sake of the video, I've picked 5 books that I did not have a good experience with at all.
And because we're roasting books, fortunately the vast majority of authors we've picked are dead, so they can't defend themselves, which is perfect for this video. Not that I imagine they'll be watching this, but you never know.
You never know. We could be famous already. Yeah.
Alright, so number 5. Would you like to start or should I start?
No, you can start.
Okay, so the number 5 on my list, so this is the 5th worst book I've read, is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Atlas Shrugged is a pro-capitalist book. It is longer than War and Peace, and it repeats itself more than any other book that I have ever read. I believe Ayn Rand only has 2 characters and one point, and every character is a clone, and every point is simply repeating what she's saying. She's pro-capitalist, she's anti-socialist, she's pro all the things that go with capitalism, she's anti all the things that go with socialism. And when she produces an example of why socialism fails, she does it in a capitalistic framework. There is one example where she's talking about a mining company which had problems because all the men were paid evenly and you couldn't respect that because some men worked harder than other men, and then she starts to talk about how the executive was paid more, and you just sort of wanting to scream at her going, don't you see the flaw? Don't you see the flaw in what you're saying right there? But it was ultimately frustrating. It was long-winded. It didn't make its point well, and I didn't agree with the point, you know, because I'm a massive lefty and Ayn Rand is a poster girl for the alt-right movement. So that's basically
That's
it.
yours. Mine is The Notebook. I really liked The Notebook movie. Didn't we all have a big cry and enjoy watching that? So I went and read the book and it's crap. It's the same story, and I am a little bit astounded as to how a book can be so significantly less engaging than a movie. That's not something that I had ever experienced before. I did follow up reading The Notebook with attempting another Nicholas Sparks book, which I did not complete, just to see if it, and it's him. It's him, it's not me. Yeah.
Would you say in general that the movie is worse than the book, and to have a book worse than the movie is a shock?
Totally, very shocking. I just found that the writing was very thin on the ground, and it just wasn't as engaging as the movie. I wasn't interested in the characters. They were portrayed much better on the screen than they were painted in the book. I was very disappointed. Yeah. What's my number 5?
My number 4 is William Burroughs' Naked Lunch. This is a book about doing heroin, and whether it's a good idea to be a heroin addict or not, which of course it's probably not advisable. This book it really tries to shock you at the start. It has people hanging themselves. It has people making love to each other by literally biting genitals off and blood coming out. It has people killing each other, and all of which is some sort of allegory for this cesspit of prostitution and drugs and not knowing what is real and so on and so forth. And it doesn't do it for me. It's, firstly, it tries to one up itself on its shockiness, and it starts off with the most shocking instance, and it just gets a little bit passé and boring, and he reuses the same lines, and I'm just like, I've read half this book. I know what the second half is doing, and I'm not a prude. Talk about, bring out your massive dildos, have your child rape scene in there, do all of those things that Burroughs has done, but have a point to it. And I know that some purist is going to say, no, you missed the point. Burroughs did have a point. Burroughs had a point. He definitely had a point, but he could have just expressed it so much more elegantly and so much less macho-esquely, I think.
Sometimes the discomfort of shocking writing is not worth the point they're trying to make, I guess.
I think, look, a comparison I would make is Germinal Zola. There is a scene where a crowd rips off a man's penis. That is an entirely shocking scene. I should say spoiler alert before I said that as well.
Yes. Scott ruins things. Can't keep secrets. We'll put spoiler alert.
We'll put spoiler alert.
This is why I have to read Les Mis.
But yeah, there's this scene and it's so well written and so well done and so believable, and it's the most shocking scene I've ever read. And when I compare that to Burroughs' Naked Lunch, he's actually doing more shocking stuff, but it's not shocking. It's not well written. I'm expecting to be shocked and therefore I'm not.
Sounds a bit grotesque.
Oh, well, yeah, it certainly is, but that's the point, He's trying to make you feel uncomfortable, but it's certainly not an enjoyable book. Anyway.
I'll probably read it. And see if I disagree.
But that's the point. If you nah, that sounds like my sort of point, give it a go.
It doesn't sound like my sort of book, but I just want to know if you missed something.
Because Burroughs he's well thought of. That book is still relevant 70 years after he wrote it. I didn't like it. Maybe you like it. Maybe that's the point of it.
My next book is Mrs. Dalloway. I've picked Mrs. Dalloway out of a hat because I just don't like Virginia Woolf. I think I like Virginia Woolf and I buy all of her books every time I see them, and then I read them and I don't enjoy them.
Visionary feminist author does seem to be your thing.
Totally, and I'm not saying that she's irrelevant or hasn't brought amazing things to literature. She was revolutionary, but as a read in a vacuum, I don't enjoy her. I often feel like her books are a thought experiment. She wants to see if something will work, and so she writes a novel. And there needs to be more than that in a novel for me. I need to feel like you're engaged with more than just the mechanics of how your novel is structured or whatever she's playing with in that particular instance. And I often feel like for Virginia it was mainly about the sort of breaking new ground, rather than balancing that with character development and a good story and all the other elements that combine to make a good novel.
I think there's something true in literature. If you are the first person to do something rather than the one to perfect it, you'll be remembered more. And is that really the case with Virginia Woolf?
Yeah, she's got a lot of firsts under her belt, and I think that has been great for literature. She was great for literature, but does that mean that she was writing her best book? I don't actually think she was writing her best book, but I think she probably gave a lot to future books.
My number 3 on the list is Moby Dick, by Herman Melville. This is the first book I ever really hated. I think most people know that Moby Dick himself doesn't turn up until the last three pages of the novel, and it's really a bit sort of get to the point. But I don't think people realise that the whole time Herman Melville is telling you about the most boring and asinine aspects of whaling. I don't care how to tie knots. I don't care how to make a harpoon gun. Sorry, Nell's just harassing our puppy. It's a bit distracting.
I've heard this rant before.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, it starts off, there's a prologue to this where he quotes every passage in the Bible that has something to do with a whale in it. And the Bible is a long book and it mentions the whales quite a lot. And that sort of is the book for me. Like, I mean, there's this story, there's this weird autoerotic love between, not autoerotic, there's this weird love between Queequeg and Ishmael, which, you know, is a little bit amusing in it, and that's probably the only good thing in it, is probably the first gay relationship we have in literature that I can think of.
Oh, that would be interesting. Do you know where the first gay scene is?
Oh, and you know, I must be wrong. Marquis de Sade surely had some gay stuff before Herman Melville, but you know, there's that sense. So that's all well and good, but it was written in Victorian times, even though he was American. It was written in quite prudish times, so it's very metaphorical, that, and it's just long-winded and boring, essentially. That's really the end. It's long-winded and boring. And if you can stand long-winded and boring books, then I can. I like a couple of very long-winded and boring authors, but not Melville. He's just, he takes the mickey.
Long-winded and boring. My next one is going to be David Copperfield. The name of the book just exited my brain for a moment there.
The Magician.
The Magician. David Copperfield was the last Charles Dickens book I will ever read. He's just not my thing. He just talks too much. Yeah, at the end.
I think Orwell said, if you can use a shorter word, use a shorter word. And there's a scene in David Copperfield where there's a donkey walking on this lady's lawn.
Which is actually funny. Like, it's funny in an absurdist sort of way.
It is.
But it just goes on and on and on and on.
Dickens decides to use the word quadruped to describe this donkey, and I'm like, well, a donkey is a quadruped, and I know what a quadruped is, but why would you substitute the word donkey for the word quadruped when the word quadruped is so much more vaster? It means any four-legged animal, as opposed to donkey, which means donkey. You know, like, it's just, I think that's his writing for me. He makes it hard for you to follow him, doesn't he?
I wouldn't say that, but I do think he waffles.
Do you think he waffles?
Yeah, he's a waffler.
Oh, sorry, I've tried to expand on your point.
He's waffled.
He's waffled. Okay. Number 2 on my list is The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. I'll come straight out and say that I'll defend that I got the other 4 books on this list, but I didn't get The Sound and the Fury, and I don't care to try it again and get it. Which is really the problem. There are other books that I didn't get that I am quite happy to say, good book, but I didn't enjoy it and I gave it 1 star. Dante's Inferno, Dante's Divine Comedy, way over my head, didn't get it. But, and the same with this book, but it's written from the point of view of somebody who has a learning disability, and so the writing seems really juvenile and pointless. The amount of things, said so-and-so, said so-and-so, said. It keeps using the word said over and over again. You're like, just say ejaculated or yelled or...
Ejaculated was the first one that came to mind.
It's because we were talking about Dickens, and that is, yeah, you know...
Dickens likes to ejaculate.
Yeah, he likes to ejaculate while having intercourse. So... maybe we should do sentences in Victorian England that are not acceptable in today's society as a video.
Yeah.
Faulkner also has this sort of macho image that he portrays, and I don't think he portrays it negatively. I think when you're talking about hitting your wife or hitting your daughter, or hitting people weaker than you, you shouldn't ever portray that as a tough man thing and have that somehow be a good thing. That should always be a negative for me. And certainly Faulkner crossed that line for me. People might disagree, because as I said, I really don't feel like I got this book very well, but it was another long-winded slog as well. And on top of this, I believe The Sound and the Fury is a sequel to Absalom, and I've not read Absalom, so...
So you're setting yourself up for success.
And there was some problems with that.
Speaking of books I did not get The Crying of Lot 49. It was not a long book. I did not finish it. What? Yeah. It was a surreal experience for me. I did not feel that I could make sense of it in any way, shape or form, and I did not it was not an enjoyable puzzle. I did not like The Crying of Lot 49.
Is it like Ulysses or something like that?
I haven't read Ulysses.
You haven't read Ulysses?
It's just horrible. I just didn't like it. And if you look at Goodreads, the experience seems to be, oh, I got it and I think it's the best book ever, or I didn't get it. And I'm quite firmly in the I didn't get it camp.
Fair enough. My number 1, Jack Kerouac, On the Road. Truman Capote said, Jack Kerouac said, I never edit my work, I just write it. And Jack Kerouac said...
And Truman Capote said...
And Truman Capote said, well, you're not a writer, you're just a typist. And I think that's about as good a sum up of Jack Kerouac as you can get. On the Road is a book without a plot, a book without characters you like, and if you're going to do a clear author insert character, if you're going to clearly talk about yourself but just change the name a little bit, then try and make yourself a bit bloody likeable, I think, you know. Again, there's this whole macho misogynist thing. I just can't stand that attitude. I hate that attitude, and I don't deal with people who have that attitude in real life. I just remove myself from them, and I don't know why I would ever seek that out in a book, except I didn't know that it was in it. But ultimately, this is the most pointless, asinine book. It's kid goes on a road trip around the world, trashes somebody's car, you know, has sex with some woman, steals money from his grandmother, writes a book. Oh, the book's on the road. Oh, look, it's the story of him writing the book that he's writing. Oh, what a pointless concept. You know, and second Beat Generation book that I've got on this list, so I'm not going to bother too much more Beat Generation.
My last one is The Catcher in the Rye, because I didn't value the point of view of the protagonist. I think is the bare facts of it. He was just unsympathetic dude, man, thing.
Privileged.
Yes, it's definitely about the privilege to some extent, but also I didn't find anything relatable, and or hopeful or charming or no, just it wasn't entertaining because the story had no value for me, which that's a false statement. The story had no value for me, but it really didn't. I did not. I read this a long time ago, and I've not taken anything away from it. Yeah, do not read.
Do not read.
Yeah.
Well, that's 10 books that we don't recommend. Maybe you like the reviews. Maybe you like Nell and you want to pick up Naked Lunch after I trashed it.
Or you want to see if you get The Crying of Lot 49. If you get it, don't explain it to me. I don't care.
I certainly want to read The Crying of Lot 49 after this just to see if it's as bad as you think it is.
He just wants to know if he's smarter than me, and the answer is no.
Anyway, on that note, that's Gunpowder Fiction and Plot for this video. Goodbye, and remember, ideas are powerful. They're more powerful than a shitty review.
Which books have no value for you, or what do you think of the books that we've reviewed? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content from Gunpowder Fiction and Plot.